Good evening. I'm Dr. Willie Miles, president of Dr. Willie Miles Children Foundation, located in Atlanta, Georgia. For those of you who are just joining us and who have never been on the live stream before on both Facebook and Instagram, we are a 501c3 not-for-profit organization that's dedicated to making children our priority, not only in Atlanta, but throughout the world. You'll find that everything we do is focused on children. I do want to make a few announcements before we actually begin the program tonight, which is going to be kind of exciting, is that I have to give some shout outs to my family members. Of course, I have a nephew who just got married in Fort Lauderdale this past weekend. Unfortunately, I was not able to be there, but Kenyatta Miles, congratulations. And I have a great human interest story of my niece, a great niece, who was responsible for saving a little boy's life who was in a car accident in Fort Lauderdale also. So I want to let them know that their uncle really loves them and really proud of the men and women that they're becoming. Just a few announcements. Jackie will not be on with us tonight. She may try to, have some family emergencies. I do want to share this is an opportunity for you all to co-host with me. So I'm going to call this In the Block on Facebook and on Instagram. If you'd like to join me live for comments, just request join live. I will accept you and I will allow you to have your comments. And guess what? I may even interview you regarding this subject matter tonight. But for those who are living in different parts of the country, I do want to say, first of all, that in Atlanta, we're kind of like it's cooling off a little bit here, and it's really feeling a little bit like fall time. And I'm really enjoying it. Yeah, I'm the seasons kind of person. I really enjoy the four seasons. And of course, after living in Fort Lauderdale for about 30 or more years, we didn't have seasons. There's only one season. That was hot. It was always hot. So next week's topic is also going to be kind of interesting. I said kind of interesting and kind of controversial. It's on interracial dating and how some families say, not my children. And that's why I'm drawing the line. So join us next week on interracial dating, not my children, switching off next week for our Let's Talk About It. So I do want to, again, thank each of you all for joining us each week for these conversations. But I do want to make sure that you all are ready to hit the button that says, I want to join live. Tonight's conversation is about something that people won't admit to. And it's sometimes I don't like my children. Sometimes I don't like my children. Now, it's kind of amazing if you ask parents, oh, no, not me. I always love my children. Children are a gift from God. And they do all of that. And then they feel guilty because sometimes they don't like their children. Okay. Are you all getting any feedback? Well, I'm hearing music coming from somewhere. I don't know where, but I'm going to keep this moving. All right. I was saying that parents oftentimes will say, I love my children. And I never disliked my children. But I want to share with you all tonight that it's totally normal. It's totally normal for parents to not like their children sometime. And there's nothing to feel guilty about. It is a natural human response of not liking your children. Now, the problem is that if it's continuous, if you don't like them all the time, and then there are some other issues. There's some other issues if you don't like them all the time. And we'll talk about that. But how many of you all have had this experience? Sometimes you just don't like them. I have. And it's really according to whether or not they're being defiant, whether or not they are meeting like the goals that you have for them, whether or not they are doing the things that you need for them to do, and they're being respectful. All those things can keep you from having a good relationship with your child and not liking them. When I talk to parents about, do you have a problem with them sometimes? No, I love my children. Yeah, right. Yeah, I didn't actually that you love them. I asked you have a problem with them sometimes, and do you have a problem with them sometimes, whereas they actually cause a problem for you, and you look at them and you say, I don't know where he came from. I don't know where she came from, but they're about to irritate me out of this world. And because they're about to irritate me, compounded with all the other things I'm going through, I don't like them right now. They need to get out of my face. Well, I'm gonna say to you, there is no reason to feel guilty about that. And oftentimes, parents who are on this guilt trip, I'm just gonna say that I just believe sometimes they have this self-hatred thing going on. And the self-hatred is where they feel shame and guilt. And the question is, where did their shame and guilt come from? And I can suggest to you that usually their shame and guilt came from their child rearing, their parents, and things that they grew up ashamed of and they never forgiven themselves for, and some things they feel guilty about that they've never forgiven themselves for. See, guilt gives you the question as to like, what have I done? Oh, I deserve this. Or I did this, therefore I'm no good. Those kind of thoughts can have you not liking your children. Not just sometimes, but a lot. Because the whole point is that if you can't like yourself, how can you like anyone else? If you've not forgiven yourself, how can you forgive anyone else? Now, I talked about the guilt part, but on the shame part, we're still talking about, do you sometimes not like your children? On the shame component, sometimes people are ashamed of what they are and who they are, and they think that they're no good. And they look at their children and say, if I'm no good, you came from me, you're an extension of me, so you're no good either. And the child could have not done anything, just exist. And you are saying, I'm really agitated by them. They agitate me all the time. There was one case where a parent said that she had the most wonderful son, made great grades in school, good grades in school. He was very likable. He just did everything wonderfully. But she said, I can't stand him. And she doesn't know why. Now, of course, that lets us know there's some other mental health kind of things going on. She doesn't know why she doesn't like her own child. But she's in her viewpoint now, in her opinion, he's doing everything right. And so the question I began to ask is there a problem with the husband? Is there a problem with, you're trying to figure out, is the child more like the dad than you? Think about it. Okay, there's something that's bothering me here, and I hear music. So hold on 1 second. I gotta handle this. All right, this is live. Okay, I solved it. I'm gonna ask, were you guys hearing music in the background? Since Jackie's not on tonight, a whole lot is going on where I am at this point. I'm handling a whole lot. But I do want to share again that we are talking about sometimes I just don't like my children. And sometimes it's temporary. It's like maybe they got a bad grade at school. Maybe they cursed at a teacher and you're just really angry at them and you're trying to figure out, where's your child? Where did he come from? Because he's not on earth. And I just don't like him. And I want to share with parents, that is okay. Because I then call that situational, sometimes I don't like my child. It's situational, sometimes I don't like my child. I want to go back to the parent though. I talked about guilt, I talked about shame. But the key to both of those is that you have to learn to accept yourself. It's self-acceptance. You gotta learn to accept yourself for who you are. And once you begin to accept yourself, you won't have a problem accepting anyone else. You won't have a problem accepting anyone else. As we begin to talk about parents who say, sometimes I don't like my child, we're always so quick to judge people. We're always so quick to judge them. Like, oh, must not be a good parent. I'm saying, I was talking about one of my clients. I said, I think that labels and diagnosis has messed a whole lot of our society up. Because when we feel that we're not doing what other people are doing, we then figure out that something is wrong with us. In other words, if what we're doing is not normed, then something is wrong with us. Well, my thought is maybe something is wrong with the people that are normed, because we're individuals. And when parents say, sometimes I don't like my children, guess what? That is a natural response. There's no need to feel guilty about it. There's no reason to feel like you're not a good parent. There's no reason to feel like, oh, I need a psychologist because every parent ought to like their kids all the time. Folks, that's not real. It's not real. And just like you don't like your children sometimes, guess what? Your children don't like you sometimes. Your children don't like you sometimes. How many of y'all can recall that when you got a whipping back in the days, you would be in that bed and say, I wish a truck would run over them. I wish they fall out of a tree. You wish all kind of things happened to your parents. Because that was situational. I don't like them. Because they did something to me I didn't like. Are you all with me? Is there anyone who would like to join me in the box now on either Facebook Live or Instagram Live? All you have to do is request to join me live, and I will, of course, say yes. All right? Let's talk more about not liking your children sometimes. But there are some parents who not only don't like their children, but who doesn't love their children. And that's a different story. That's a different story. And parents who don't love their children have a problem with their own self-image and their own self-worth. Parents who don't have the capacity to love their children tells us that something is very wrong. When the parent is incapable of love, that means the parent is disturbed. And you can sort of like see why a lot of kids are in foster care, because many parents, not many, but some parents are incapable. They're just incapable of loving their children because of the many traumas that have happened in their lives. And they can't see beyond their own traumas to be of benefit to their own children. That's a disturbed parent. Other parents who are too sick to love their children. And I don't mean physically sick. I mean mentally sick, depressed. They're in a dark place. So therefore, that sometimes becomes, I don't like my children. And not only do I not like my children, I don't like my husband, I don't like a wife, I don't like my house, I don't even like me. So we're talking about the kind of people who not only don't like their children sometimes, but who doesn't love their children at all. Now, let me make sure I'm clear on this. When you don't love your children, that is not okay. And I talked about norm. That is not something that's norm when you don't love your children. That means something is drastically wrong. I said it's okay for you not to like your children sometimes. It is okay. It is normal. It is a emotion that we have for us not to like our children sometimes. But it is not a emotion that's driven us to not love our children. It is a mental health issue, depression. And some parents only love their children when they do things positively. And those are people who are narcissists. They love that their children are reflecting upon them positively. They love the child when the child reflects upon them positively. When everybody's saying, you just have a wonderful daughter, you have a wonderful son, they're doing great things. Oh, yeah, that's why I love him. But there will be times when you don't like your child when they're doing everything right. And that means then that something is wrong with you. And sometimes we get too angry to love our children. And also our anger can cause us not to like our children sometimes. I can't believe I got a call from the school today. I had to leave my job to go and pick his tail up. Then he gets in the car and tell me he doesn't care what I think. No, I don't like him. When it's clearly, I really don't like his behavior. There's a distinct difference. I don't like him as a person, and I don't like his behavior. I don't like his behavior. So it's very important we sort those two out. All right, the other thing is when parents only love the special child. And children will tell you, they say, listen, I know you got a favorite. I know you got a favorite. And it's kind of interesting. The parent who has the favorite can really never do anything wrong. And I have to share a little secret with y'all. Parents will not admit it, but they all have a favorite child. And the favorite child is usually the child that shows compassion or does something for the parent. For instance, the parent comes home after work. The child says, can I fix your plate for you? Can I get something for you? Can I run your bath water for you? I know you're tired. What can I do for you? The child who does the most for the parent usually is the favorite. Now I can hear y'all saying that ain't always the truth because I do the most for my mother and she act like I don't even much exist. And of course, that is another story. So we're talking about those parents who don't have the capacity to love, and we're talking about the parent who sometimes don't like their children. So the parent who doesn't have the capacity to love, of course, I call them the screwed up parent. That means something is really messed up with them mentally. They don't have the capacity. The depressed parent, the parents who's going through trauma, the parents who's going through, trying to pay the bills and trying to, a single parent who is trying to make things work and the children just ain't acting right. The angry parent, the parent who's angry at the husband or the boyfriend and takes it out on the children. Well, let me add to that. Not only angry at the husband or the boyfriend or wife, but angry at someone. It could be the mother. I have cases where adults are angry at their parents for things they didn't do when they were young, and sometimes the adults' children suffer from it. They carry that anger over to their own children. The narcissist, the parent who is in love with themselves, everything centers around them, everything the child says, breathes, and does reflects them. Not realizing that child is an independent being who has its own mind and who's going to make some mistakes. Also, the controlling parent. I don't like him. I can't control him. He gonna do nothing I say do. Well, that's not really a reason to not like them. He doesn't do anything I say do. That is not really a good reason to not like them. We have to learn to work with our children, and we have to learn how to manage ourselves and manage our own emotions. And most important, we must learn to manage our expectations of our children. And sometimes, just sometimes, parents set their children up for failure because they give the children higher expectations than the child can achieve. The child stressed out, you stressed out. You want him to be a mathematician, and he doesn't like fractions. You know, what an expectation that I expect my child to like any subject. I expect my child to do the best that he or she can do in those subjects. And if they fall short, guess what? Still gonna love on them. I ain't gonna say, sometimes I don't like you. Yeah, since I mentioned that, I kind of want to talk about that for a little while also, is that parents who tell their children that. Parents, you got to be very careful. The words you tell children carries over into adulthood, and they never forget it. They never forget it. The words you tell your children carry over into adulthood, and they never forget it. They never forget it. So be cautious. Whether or not you're speaking life or death into your children's lives. I'm ready for some comments. Give me some feedback on how am I doing by myself, how I'm doing solo. I need some feedback from our Facebook family and from our Instagram family. How am I doing so far? And not only how am I doing, but are you all relating to this topic? Sometimes I don't like my children. And also understanding that there are some parents who say, I don't love my children. And begin to try to figure out or wonder, why is it they don't love their children? Okay, nobody's touching the box tonight. Nobody wants to join me live. Y'all are cowards. You just don't want to be on live with me. But I'm okay. We're good. We're good. We're good. So we talk about the parent who says, I don't like my child sometimes, versus the parent who says, I don't love my child. Y'all, I tell parents all the time that they have to, I mentioned this before, regulate their expectations of their children, but not only regulate their expectations, but parents, it's so important that you regulate your emotions toward your children. And what does regulate mean? Be conscious of what you say to your children. Be conscious and of the words that you use with your children. And if Jackie were here tonight, she'd use the word, be deliberate. Be deliberate about what you say to your children. Make sure you don't ever say anything to your children that it's going to be long-lasting and does harm to them mentally, and they carry them to adulthood, and they get to be 40 years old saying, I never forget my mom telling me that she hated me. Or I never forget my mom telling me that she didn't like me. Or I never forget my dad telling me that I was never going to be anything. Or I'm never going to forget my dad telling me that I'm not his child. Well, that's another story that I wrote. I don't want to go down tonight, but I can tell you the impact when men tell children that they're not his children, especially if he's raising them. All right, let me get back to my topic because I'm getting off course here, but it's a topic I do want to talk about because it does severe harm to children. Parents, regulate. That word is regulate. Regulate and be intentional and deliberate about your conversation with your children. And when you regulate your emotions, you won't have the frequency of, I don't like my child sometimes. If you regulate your emotions, but not only regulate your emotions, but if you control and regulate your environment, if you control and regulate your environment, you won't have those feelings of, I need to lash out. I need to let them know what I feel. try to understand your children. Try to understand that they're going to make mistakes. And they are a package deal. Loving them unconditionally. In spite of their faults. In spite of their errors. And in spite of the things they sometimes say to you. They are human. And what they need is reassurance. They need encouragement. And they need positiveness when they go astray. As parents, we must tell our children that we're going to always be there. Now, we can't control what happens to them out in the world. Only they can do that. They have to deal with the consequences of their behaviors. And even when they get arrested, you shouldn't be saying, sometimes I just don't like him. Or you can change it up and start saying, sometimes I just don't like the things that he does. Sometimes I just don't like the thing that he does or that she does. Parents, it's important for you to continue to stay positive with your children, giving positive messages. It's important that you stay positive because, we said this before, children don't hear what you say. They look at what you do. And I'm saying, not just talking about children, I'm talking about teens. They look at what you do, not what you say. And oftentimes we as parents conflict in the things we do versus the things we say. And then we use, well, I'm the parent, I can do that. Well, I guess the whole thing is just to make sure that we're not conflicting. And if we do conflict, I think an explanation is in order. Not that you have to explain to anybody, especially your children. But my whole thing is I try to treat my children the way I want to be treated. If I tell them to respect me, I'm going to respect them until they prove otherwise. They tell me they need their boundaries, I'm going to respect that as long as they're in compliance with my boundaries. And I think that will prevent sometimes I don't like my children. And parents, I think it's really important that as we begin to take a look at these reasons why we don't sometimes like our children, it's important that we don't criticize them all so much. Now, there's a difference between critiquing and criticizing. Criticizing is you did something. Critiquing is what you did, the thing that you did, I'm critiquing it. I'm critiquing how you put the dishes in the dishwasher. I'm critiquing the process. I really hope that this is helping you all and that we're talking about a topic that many parents have dealt with and have felt guilt about. Sometimes I don't like my children. I'm going to cut the program short tonight, 30 minutes only. Normally we have an hour. You see, I need somebody to help me talk. But this is all good. There's no sense in me keeping you all on when I'm finished, basically. I'm just going to say, if you say that sometimes I don't like my children, you're okay. You deserve to say that. But make sure that you don't start saying, I don't love my children. And if you do start saying that, I'm going to suggest you start seeking out help right away because you may need a therapist. It's always great talking to you all. I will see you again next week. Let's hope Jackie's going to be back next week. I hope all is well with her family also. And I hope all is well with your family. Hey, people, stay safe. I'm going to say to you all, if you've not been vaccinated, hey, it's up to you. It's your choice. But I have been, and I'm getting the booster. All right, so take care. I'll see you next week. Be blessed.